Before we get started in the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. So we are continuing on the discussion of the second noble truth, that the source of our suffering is tanha, craving, or the attachment to our craving or desire. So last time we discussed that there are 3 bases to the second noble truth, or 3 kind of channels of our craving: sense craving to our senses, and to the craving to be and the craving not to be. So we've already discussed these sense bases, or sense craving, last week. So continue with the last 2, craving to be and craving not to be. Sounds like a philosophical question now, to be or not to be. Well, we'll find out today whether you want to be or not. So anyway, the craving to be, right? This craving here, as a noble truth, isn't necessarily a decision of wanting to be something, right? It's more of a reflex or a reaction to life. Because every sane person wants to be happy, right? Nobody wants to be unhappy. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to have a constant source of suffering, right? We all want to be loved and liked rather than disliked or rejected, right? We all want to be successful and be able to succeed in our endeavors, right? There's an inherent desire to want to be happy. But unfortunately, our world isn't always in accord with those desires, right? There's dissonance, unfortunately. And as long as we attach to that world, right, as long as we attach to this world, that dissonance is always going to be felt and experienced as things not going the way we want them to be, which is the biggest obstacle to our suffering, right? This is where the concept of avidya comes from, or comes into place. Ignorance, what it taught us. And ignorance in this case is the desire for things to be different than what they actually are, right? And that's the biggest obstacle to our inherent happiness that we're supposed to have. But unfortunately, we don't see things as they truly are. We see things as we want them to be, or wish them to be. And when they go against those wishes or desires, that's when our suffering starts to attack. That's when the reality of that dissonance comes into place, where our experiences are influenced by our past, mostly. And it's that past, those negations from the past, and our cravings of the past, our cravings of what we wanted to be when we grew up, the cravings of what kind of job we wanted, the cravings of what kind of family we wanted to have, or the type of person we wanted to be. And so all those are kind of big influences that create our future cravings. But though those are the big things, like I said last time, when we use the word suffering, we think of the big things of suffering. Death, right, is a big concept of suffering. The loss of someone, or a breakup, or the loss of a job, or a house, or a car. All these are big things. But it's the smaller things and the smaller cravings that start to truly be the most impactful. Because think of anything you want, right? We want peace, perhaps. We want to be stress-free, have a stress-free life, to have a traffic-less route back home, to have a table ready when we go to a restaurant, to have our doctor's appointments start on time versus waiting an hour. For some reason, everyone does. I don't understand that. But anyway, see, that's a craving right there. Craving to be seen on time. But it's those little things that become the true influencers of our suffering. But when we start to come to the realization of those little things, and seeing that, Michelle isn't here, but I was speaking with Michelle yesterday. When we start to recognize that things won't go always according to plan, right? When we want things to go according to plan, we have this tunnel vision of wanting to see only that thing. Does that make sense? So if you have this influence, this desire to have this event that you're planning to work out as planned, everything's going to go smooth sailing. You've ironed out all the little kinks. You wrote down every little detail, everything's planned to the minute or to the second even, right? And you're like, all right, this event's gonna go exactly the way I want it to. It's gonna go exactly as planned, everything's gonna start on time, it's gonna end on time, etc., etc., etc. Well, what happens when we do that? Typically, chaos. Nothing goes as planned, right? The more we want it to go as planned, the less it's actually going to go as planned. Right? Because when the mind is so caught up in something and the way it wants, when the mind is so caught up in something it wants so bad to go as planned, it's blind to every other little aspect that's happening around it. It's blind to all the little other opportunities around it, right? It doesn't see the leaky keg or something, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't see that the corner of one table is about to fall off and all the food is about to be on the ground. It's not to see the balloons flying away in the background, right? It's so focused on everything going as smoothly and as planned, it's not seeing all the little other details. But our life in general is typically like that, right? Think of when you're getting ready for work, getting ready to go somewhere. You're so busy getting ready. You're so busy trying to hurry up and to rush things that you left your phone at home. You forgot your wallet, or you're driving unmindfully and cause the chaos. Cause an accident, or whatever it may be, right? We do this quite often. But when we start to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that things aren't always going to go according to plan, then it's easier to see those little faults. It's easier to see those little mini chaoses happening in real time. When we're able to see that, then our mind starts to hopefully calm a bit, starts to truly balance out, to see things more clearly. Once it's able to see things more clearly, then it has more potential, more energy to actually acknowledge the changes. It's going to acknowledge and accept those changes and acknowledge and accept that things are going to happen differently or to be different, and you're going to have to react differently, right? As we've mentioned last week, right, the biggest or the most important thing we can do during our suffering is being aware of our reaction. Right? Because anyone slapping you, for instance, I would never slap you. Maybe. But the slap, right, isn't suffering. Yes, there's pain, right? There's physical pain, but that pain isn't suffering. Your suffering is a reaction to being slapped, right? What is a reaction? What is a typical unmindful reaction to one being slapped? Anger, violence, fear, right? And so our reaction is typically to respond in an exact same way. Oh, you slap me, I'm gonna slap you. It goes from slapping to hitting to kicking, stabbing, shooting, who knows, right? You're in Texas, they can just pull out a gun on you. We don't know. But our reaction is the main factor here, right? But once we're able to control that reaction, not necessarily control, but once we're able to, control is probably the best word I can think of. Once we're able to control that reaction mindfully, then we start to have, again, a more balanced mind, a clear mind, and we're able to react more compassionately and more objectively versus trying to fight back, to retaliate. Right? So we can change that kind of miserable experience to something a little bit more productive, potentially, depending on the situation. But this goes more, this craving to be, though, is I'm trying to find a PC way to say this. Our craving to be has to our craving to be is going to be mostly tied to our personality, first and foremost, right? Because just think of the phrase craving to be, right? Which is, if we really start to dig down, once we go into craving not to be, we'll see if we're familiar with the 12 links of dependent origination, for instance, right? 12 links of dependent origination. One of the links is becoming, right? And this becoming kind of falls under the second noble truth. If we're wanting to become something other than what is happening, right? Which doesn't make much sense, but it's essentially wanting things to be different other than what they are, and wanting even ourselves to be different other than what we are, right? Think of society in general, especially in Western society. Everything outside of you everything that you are is being influenced by external circumstances. Right? By advertisements, by TV, by movies, by celebrities, everything that's out there, right, is influencing you. You're essentially trying to be molded into something that isn't you, right? And so we often try to force ourselves into this mold that this simply just doesn't fit, right? And so we change according to what we think others want us to be. Think of, most of us are older, right? So think of when we were younger, right? Think of someone that you had a crush on, or someone you first started dating. How often did we change our personality in order to suit their needs, to suit what they liked? Right? Did you pretend to like something that you really didn't? Did you pretend to like hiking when you despised the outside? Did you pretend to like to cook when you just hated the sight of the kitchen? Right? Think of the things that we might have changed because of others. Or even when you go into job interviews. Right? Job interviews are, though you should probably be totally honest, but we often exaggerate our skills and expertise in some cases, right? Or you try to fake it till you make it, right? So we often try to be somebody else and something else other than what we are. But if you think back to that, did any of that actually bring any true joy, bring any happiness, right? We substituted true happiness or our own happiness for the sake of others, for the sake of something else, for someone else. That just caused stress, caused dissatisfaction, caused anxiety, caused fear, sometimes even despise, right? So next is the craving not to be. This is also craving not to experience the world and to be nothing, which seems like almost like the next logical step. But the Buddha tells us that not becoming the world is different from becoming someone who doesn't relate to the world. Because wanting not to be makes the problem out of existence, right? So it's kind of like saying, I don't want to be here, I don't want to experience the responsibilities of life, right? I don't like myself, I don't like others, everything else is causing suffering, right? That's simply just the craving not to be influencing our life. But the only thing that has to stop there, right, is we want things to stop. Right? How often do we want tragedy to stop? How often do we want our suffering to stop? All the time, usually, right? But the only thing that truly needs to stop is craving. But that often takes that skillful desire that we spoke about last week, right? A motivated force to stop that craving. Because there is skillful desire in our practice, right? We often talk about having desire. But desire is a tricky word, which is why I mentioned last time that we're substituting the word desire from now on with craving. Because craving is more correct than desire, because we can have good desires, skillful desires, what the Buddha called it. So we have to have the skillful desire in order to get out of that suffering. And then the Buddha quotes that with that skillful desire, that we can rise up, that we can meet those challenges and willingness to learn and to be strengthened, and then we can grow into more compassionate and serene beings. And with that clarity, we don't always see that clarity, right? We allow the suffering and the dissatisfaction that's going on in our life, the chaos that's going on in our life, to sit in the driver's seat of our minds, right? And the reality, that driver is kind of blind, right? You're in an Uber with a blind driver, essentially, right? You don't know what they're doing, you don't know what you're doing, you know where you're going. It's often the trajectory of our life. We don't really know what's happening. We don't really know where life is going to go. And because we don't know, we often try to control that outcome, right? Trying to control what's going to happen next. But it's within that control, or that trying to control, that chaos naturally occurs. Because when you're trying to force something to fit or to be molded into how you want things to be, you just create more problems. It's like trying to use a Phillips screwdriver on a flathead, screw. It's not going to work. But you're going to sit there and try to make it work. until you've smoothed out the screwdriver until it's flat. You're going to be sitting there for a few years probably, scratching the screwdriver until it gets flattened. That's what we do. We force and force and force and push and push and push and try to control and control and control. We end up just ruining things in the end. Or at least making things less easy. But this is exactly what the Buddha encouraged us to see clearly and to find the origin of our suffering. Right? So why it's really important to meditate on suffering. Right? Like we said yesterday during the meditation class, it's important to suffer. Right? It's important to suffer because everyone suffers, and you're going to suffer whether you want to or not. The moment you are born, you're going to suffer for the rest of your life. There's no changing that. Right? It sounds terrible, it sounds pessimistic, and it should, and it is. But we have to suffer in order to realize that non-suffering exists. Right? Not necessarily happiness, because happiness is circumstantial, right, for the most part. Temporary happiness, at least. The true happiness is the realization that suffering exists, and you're going to suffer whether you want to or not. The only way you're not going to suffer is, again, the reaction to your circumstances. Right? Like I said, I can slap you. You can either take that as suffering or not suffering. It's going to be completely up to you. But then the commentary goes on to say that the fact that the arising of suffering can be noticed means that it arises from something other than suffering, and that there is something other than suffering that notices it. So whatever arises has a cause, because it's created, so simply to recognize that suffering arises is the beginning of opening our mind to a deeper understanding. And this kind of goes back to why we should meditate on suffering. Because if we don't contemplate suffering, right, or try to understand our suffering, then suffering becomes unnoticeable, right? Because our reflex, our habit, is to often push suffering away, right? To be averse to the things that may cause us suffering, right? You see someone you don't like, instead of walking toward them, we walk the opposite way. Right? We avoid them. You avoid foods you don't like. You avoid places you don't like. You avoid things that you just don't want to do. Right? We're not facing reality. We're becoming averse to it. We're shifting our attention away. This doesn't actually do any benefit to you. You're just suppressing. Right? You're just thinking, you're just putting it in your pocket and hoping you'd forget about it. But guess what? When you try to forget about something, what's going to happen? It just comes back up later on, right? Yeah? It doesn't, we often think that if we ignore our suffering, that it'll just kind of stay stagnant, static, it won't change. But oftentimes, that suffering actually starts to grow. Right? Suffering is a weed. You may just pluck it, but it's still there. The roots are still there. Right? You may have allowed it to disappear temporarily, but it's still there. That's what we do. We don't actually root out the weeds of suffering. We simply just pluck it from the surface. We're like, oh, it's gone. But next week, there's 2 more weeds. Pluck that out, the week after that there's 3 weeks. And it just continues and continues and continues. This is also the craving not to be is also our aversion toward or assuming that bad things won't happen either. Right? We assume that calamities won't happen to us. like I've mentioned before, we often remember our suffering much more than the times of happiness in our life. Right? We have to remember bad memories more often than good memories. We have to remember tragedies and traumas more than anything else. This is what the Buddha called, again going back, this is what the Buddha says is our part of our ignorance, avidya, is to not accept things as they are. Right? That's the kind of the whole point of his teaching the Noble Truths, the Four Noble Truths, is that we just simply don't accept things for what they are. But why? Why don't we accept things as they are? Painful, being painful, yeah. What else? You don't want to accept impermanence, yeah?
False perceptions.
False perceptions. What else? Attachment, there you go. Craving, right? And then what do we do next? Something happens, we're like, no, I don't want this. Or I don't accept this. Then what do?
We force it sometimes.
Force it. Try to fix it. Trying to fix it isn't necessarily always a bad thing either, right? But when we're trying to force something to be fixed, when we're trying to control the full outcome, then we're using up so much energy for something that may or may not actually be productive in the end. Even though we try to force something to bend to our will, it doesn't mean it will. And if you did, it doesn't mean it'll be successful either. Right? How many times have we tried to fix something in our lives and just ended up being worse? Yes.
So I guess it all comes back to the attachment happiness. I mean, if you realize you're not healthy, you can use certain things to be healthy. Or if you want a better life, you can do certain things to have a better life.
Right.
But as soon as you attach to the idea you form of what you're going to have, then
right. So attachment to, just think of fanatics, right? They're attached to that their own view or their own belief is one true, only way to live, to survive, right? And regardless of all the evidence against what they believe that you throw at them, they'll never believe it, never accept it, right? It's like working out and thinking that only through physical activity can you be healthy, right? You're gonna eat like crap, eat junk food all you want. You're like, no, I can eat whatever I want as long as I work out. If I only work out, then I'm gonna be healthy. Well, that's clearly not the case, right? We know that. That it affects that, yes, working out and exercise is important, but your diet is also important. Mental health is also important. That affects your overall health, not just physical activity. Likewise, our own practice is the exact same way. Only reading and only studying isn't going to be beneficial to you. But only meditating and only chanting is also not going to be beneficial to you. You need a holistic experience. You need a holistic practice of studying, reading, chanting, and meditating. and applying all that into your everyday life. That's what's going to bring you liberation. Not just the reading, not just the chanting, not just the meditation. Right? So that's the craving to be, not to be. And the attachment to how we want things to be and our reaction toward it. So next time you get slapped, what's the reaction like?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are there any ways to touch on the difference between, I guess, having a desire or letting the desire pass versus actually acting like, okay, it's slap me. Like, if the person keeps coming at you, the moment you decide, okay, this is no longer, now I have to protect myself, or not even if I, let's just say, like, I go to a concert and with a friend, and the music is just nothing but screaming and it's loud, and I hate it. Does it touch on the word? And I tell myself, okay, well, this isn't what you wanted, but, try to make the best of it versus, okay, I no longer want to be here. It's better, I'll be happy when I just leave. Does it touch on that decision making and how to go about it?
The Buddha tells us that we all have a choice, right? You have a choice to be happy or to be unhappy. So, in a moment of decision making, when we think of, when we get to the Eightfold Path, for instance, the very first of the Noble Eightfold Path is right view, right? And then it's right thinking, right intention, right speaking, right action, etc., etc. As you go down the list, right, the common denominator between everything and between the choices that we decide to make in life comes down to a simple formula of, does it bring harm to yourself or to others? Right? So when we make choices in life, that is the underlying question we should ask ourselves. Does it bring harm to ourselves or to others? And so if you're in a situation where you have to, you just know that you're uncomfortable or unhappy, well then if leaving assuages that suffering or the uncomfortability or eases it, right, then do it. Otherwise, you're going to continue your suffering for the sake of someone else, essentially, right? Yeah. Choices.
Yeah, so I thought that when we do this chain reaction, so we see the end game, we call it more softening, the cause and effect, because once we get into the situation that we are reacting, so we gotta listen to it, think, okay, we gotta do that. By quenching this guy who was coming on us, or we quite a concept or down to the mind. But what's the end of it? Well, there will be more softening after we might be potentially in the lawsuit or something like that. And that's the more and more suffering.
Right. It also could just be your karma. If you want to bring karma to this, right? Maybe you owe a karmic debt and you have to suffer that.
But I think you said something about, or do I try and see it differently? Because that's what I always tell kids when they're stuck in a situation that's unfavorable. I always tell, okay, let's reframe our thoughts. And I think sometimes even Buddha was put into that position where when people were insulting him, he would just smile. He didn't walk away.
Right.
He would just stand there and smile. And it would make him angrier in some cases, like, why aren't you mad? Why am I not getting the reaction I want out of you?
Right.
And he wouldn't give it to them.
Right.
And so I'm trying to tell the kids the same thing. But even if you're in an unpleasant situation, even like reframing your thoughts and thinking, well, let me see what these kids get out of this horrible music, so-called music, or let me try and understand the lyrics and understand where these people are coming from, or, just that sort of thing. sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I think it's the easy way to just walk away versus reframing your thoughts, and kind of changing your perspective. Sometimes it's a little bit more of a learning experience.
Right.
In a way to be suffering.
And with the slapping part, I mean, that's the physical aspect. It's just, if they keep coming, and then now you're doing harm to yourself, which, it says not to do that. And if your own actions, fight back, that's you're not always going to be able to run. This is not the world we live in. So that's why I was curious, just on that part.
One of my favorite stories what I'd given was when, I don't know what time or when the occasion was, but there's a story that Lynn had mentioned when someone would insult the Buddha. Right? There's a story of this old lady who didn't agree with Buddha at all. And she would come to the Buddha and start yelling at him, insulting him, and calling him out, saying he's a fraud, blah, blah, blah. And the Buddha would just sit there, smile back, right? And she would ask, why aren't you responding? Why aren't you reacting? And the Buddha simply just asked her, if you were to give me a gift and I didn't accept it, to whom does this gift belong to then? And she was like, well, me, because I'm the one that bought the gift. So the Buddha said, well, likewise, your anger toward me, if I don't accept it, just goes back to you. Right? And so that's one way we can reframe our mind in certain situations, especially in situations of anger, where someone's trying to, yelling at us or arguing with us or insulting us. Okay? Those are perfect opportunities for you to practice mindfulness, practice awareness of what's going on in the situation. Because the best thing you can do is react, and the worst thing you can do is to react. Right? But the reaction, though it's both good and bad, only becomes good and bad depending on how you react. Or not react. So it's not about, we all are put in situations that we don't want to be in, or that make us uncomfortable, or make us anxious, or angry, or even happy, right? Even the happy times. Even if you did go to a concert and you did enjoy the music, right? That's also a desire to be, right? Craving to be, because you're in a place that you do like. If you don't like the music, then it's craving not to be. You're wanting to be different. And if you do like it, you want more of it. If you don't like it, you want less of it, right? So it's a bad thing whether you like it or not like it, right? But it's our reaction toward it, and our reaction whether or not you want more or less of it, right? That's where that's where our craving becomes dangerous. Because yes, you can like things, you can want things, but then how bad is your response toward them? Do you want more of it, right? Are you desperate for more? Which is typically how our lives work. When we have something that we like, we want more of it. When we have something that we don't like, we want less of it. Right? So we're always playing this push and pull game with life. We're pulling in the things that we want and we're pushing out the things that we don't want. Right? We're constantly just pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. Right? When does it end? Don't you want that to end? Don't you want that stress of just that constant push and pull to stop? So to recognize that we are pushing and pulling with our desires and the things that we do and do not want, we're able to see that clearly and recognize, oh, this is craving, or this is aversion, right? Then we can hopefully snap ourselves out of it. So that's all you need, is a simple realization of what's happening. That's it. That in itself is a tremendous advantage to you. That in itself is an enlightened moment. The realization of something that you're craving or being averse to, that in itself is a huge accomplishment. The same way that when we're meditating, we're focusing on our breath or whatever object of meditation you're on, and a distraction arises, or you get, lost in thoughts and lost in this movie that the mind is creating because of a feeling that arose or sound that was made. Regardless of how long it takes you to recognize that you've become distracted, right? Whether it takes a few seconds, a few minutes, or even your entire session of the meditation. But as long as you've come to the realization that you've become distracted, you've succeeded 100%. That was an enlightened moment. That was an awareness. That was an aha moment, right? It's very short and very brief and very short-lived, but it still happened. So our goal now is to continue developing that same realization, so the realizations come up sooner, quicker, and last longer. And eventually, your little moments of aha becomes one huge moment, one huge aha moment. And you've liberated, entered nirvana in the mind, right? And we want that? Hell yeah, we want that. What do we want? Nirvana. What do we want now?
So another way to look at that situation where we are in some kind of a strange situation, uncomfortable situation, that you can always see that the universe is testing. We're going towards that nirvana path, and it's just like a little test here, and we don't want to get into this reaction anymore. Well, gas is test.
Right.
That's the Christian is a God is testing. It's a similar concept. You see somebody else is testing you, and then kind of like, if you can't control yourself, then like you just seek the help of some power, like universe of God testing you, and then you can work on that.
Yeah. I often play, not so much anymore because I don't have much opportunity, but in the past, I always attempted to put myself into specific situations where I knew I wasn't going to like it. So I would intentionally put myself in uncomfortable situations to, in this sense, force myself out of that kind of stupidity, right? Because if you think about it, the only reason you feel uncomfortable, right? It could be for many reasons, but the main reason is because of our own ego trying to fight itself, trying to fight the situation. Because if you think back a few months ago when we were going over the 10 fetters, the very first fetter is self-view, right? This attachment to the idea of self that we've created, this personality that we've created, this character that we've spent our entire lives molding and creating, saying, this is who I am, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is how I am, this is who I am, this is whatever. Your entire personality is created. And so when you're put in a situation that you feel uncomfortable, you don't like, it's because you've created an ego that doesn't like that. Right? You've created a bias. It could be a bias, it could be because of a past experience or a traumatic experience, or someone may have said something or did something in the past that you don't like, so now you automatically dislike or feel uncomfortable with people or situations or places. And so you've kind of ingrained it, or you've cemented it in your mind that this will always make me feel uncomfortable, or this is something that I will always not like, or hate, or love, or whatever it may be. And so when you're put in a situation that goes against it, of what your mind, or of what your ego has created, then that's where you start to feel uncomfortable. You start to feel unease. You start to feel like, oh, this isn't me. Who are you in the first place? You don't know who you are, and yet you're telling yourself, this isn't me. You don't know who you is. Who you is. Who you is. Who you are.
So we do that with social media nowadays, and we'll do anything to get a like.
Absolutely. 100%.
In order to create that being that you're really not.
Yep. That's why social media sucks.
That's why, like, whenever the time turn the flip screwdriver into the flag,
Yep.
and you forget that you when you leave the true flip, like yourself, the true flip screwdriver, you can't, have it. It's just flattened so much, not you.
Exactly. Yeah, no, social media is a 100% great example of just pretending to be something else that you're not. Every time I see these influencers, I'm like, God, your life looks so exhausting. Like I'm exhausted for you. I don't understand why you would want to do that. Other than just being you. Whatever you is. All right, let's stop talking. Any other questions, concerns, emotional outbursts?
The whole teachings, I felt like I was going back to what you mentioned about the roots. It's getting to the root of oneself.
Right.
To have that blossom, that growth. And it takes time.
It does take time.
It's meditation, like you said. Because sometimes our mind can get very chaos.
Mm-hmm.
We lose ourselves in that.
It's time consuming, but I can guarantee you there's light at the end of the tunnel. Right? You have most people have kind of this misconception of Buddhism in general, but mostly of what nirvana is, right? Nirvana is simply the absence or the extinguishment of volition, right? There's no more driver in the car of our mind, right? Nirvana simply is the absence of thinking, is one way we can think of it, right? And it's not something that's this grand gesture or experience, right? There's no fireworks flying around to achieve enlightenment. There's no parade for you. There's no huge celebration. Like I said earlier, the simple act of recognizing in meditation that you've become distracted, or the simple act of recognizing that whatever situation that you're in, you can see that this is suffering, or this is craving, or this is desire, or this is bringing harm. Those little things, those are moments of nirvana. That is nirvana. So don't overthink it, right? Because we often do. Right? We're forcing ourselves to meditate longer. We're forcing ourselves to try to meditate. We're forcing ourselves to try to learn as much as we can, to study as much as we can, to read as much as we can. Well, none of that's really going to be much for the most part, right? Because if all you do is read and read and read, you're just becoming a scholar. And if all you do is practice, 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 then you're just becoming a slave to the practice, right? You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. But when you combine the two efforts of learning and practicing, then when you're out in the world and you're in a situation, you can recognize what things are for what they are. This is suffering. This is delusion. This is craving. This is wanting. This is not wanting. Right?
I've heard it somewhere else where surrendering is very important because you try to control the outcome. You're not going to control it, so you have to get to surrender.
Correct. Right. Surrender or letting go. Right. Letting go of our ego, of our desire to want something to be, essentially. Right? You have to surrender or let go to the fact that it is what it is. Right? We can try to control the outcome as much as you can, as much as you want. There's no guarantee. And because there's no guarantee, there's no reason to suffer over it. Right? But because we feel so attached to the idea of control, that we don't recognize that that's suffering. We think that we're the masters of our lives. We think we're the masters of our mind. And so we try to control and control and control. And then when the outcome is different than what that control is, we don't surrender, we don't let it go. Like, no, let's just add more to it. Right? I didn't get what I want this time, well, I'm going to get it next time. If the next time comes, you still don't get it, and you do it again, you do it again over and over and over again. You're just adding more suffering versus just accepting it and letting it go, and recognizing that it is what it is. We're all fools, but at least we're wise fools. We're self-aware fools. There you go. No, that's truth though. Like in the, if you remember when I was discussing the Dhammapada, right? Chapter 2 is, or 3 is the fool, and the Buddha said that to be a fool and not to know that you're a fool makes you a true fool, but to be a fool and to know that you're a fool makes you a wise fool. So at least you know you're foolish, and what you're doing is foolish, and you can correct it. But when you do foolish things and don't know you're foolish and doing foolish things, then you're truly a fool. So we're all wise fools. Beautiful. All right, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times, and we'll go chanting. Namo Shakyamuni positive karmic action was accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merits of all sentient beings and all beings. So the last week of chanting the Happiness Sutra, please go to page 187. Understand
our sincere intentions thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva, and great Bodhisattva. To the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma, and spatially Sangha, throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space, and 3 periods of time. To the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, Maitreya, honored future Buddha, Manjushri, great wisdom, Bodhisattva, universal great conduct, Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva, Bodhisattva, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion, Bodhisattva, great strength, Bodhisattva, earth sword, great out, Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattva. O great compassion in Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo, great compassion in Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo, great compassion, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Jaya Namo Ayavado
Sharila Vayamana Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Mahasiddhaya Swaha Siddhayogeeshwaraya Swaha Narakindi Swaha Maranara Swaha Sira Siddha Bhogaya Swaha Sarva Mahasiddhaya Swaha Chakra is the greatest happiness for he or she who accomplishes this unvanquished wherever they always they are safe and happy. Happiness lives within oneself. Namo Buddhas come unworthy of offerings of prop and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and conduct, skillful in leading the world through liberation, perfect and complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed, maintaining hero, teacher of gods and people, Buddha, the world honored one. Bodhisattva Avadokita, while moving in the deep course of Paramita, shed light on the five skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-beingness and shoddy Buddha. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not of emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, shoddy Buddha, all dharmas are marked and empty. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither increased nor decreasing. Therefore, in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, or perceptions, or mental formations, or consciousness. No eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind. No form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object, none of the elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them. No ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas grounded in Paramita find no obstacles for their minds, having no obstacle. They overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Adhopada Samyak Sambodhi. For one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequal mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra. It should therefore be proclaimed. Gate, gate, para, sam, gate, bodhi, swaha, gate, para, sam, gate, bodhi, swaha, gate, para, sam, gate, bodhi, swaha. Om mani padme, 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 om
Take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world, loving in the refuge of Dharma. I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation, dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build for full communities, to embrace all beings and support transformation. Rising the Sutra, practicing the way of awareness, gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer true